Ladies, gentlemen, and all you first-person shooter fans, once again, as always, I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be taking a preview look at Boss Key Productions' upcoming multiplayer online first-person shooter, Lawbreakers. The game is currently in alpha, and the footage shown is in alpha, so please be aware that anything that you do say is subject to change. So, Lawbreakers. I was not interested in this in the slightest coming into it. I have to say, on the back of Battleborn, on the back of Overwatch, this just seemed like a very boorish standard first-person shooter. You know, it was made by Cliff Bleszinski, who of course made the Gears of War series, and I didn't particularly enjoy any of those games, so this held really no appeal for me from the get-go. It was certainly a strange one because, like I said, on the back of something like Overwatch that is packed with character and personality, what could Lawbreakers offer me that Overwatch doesn't already? So I went into one of the alpha test weekends to play the game, and I went in with a pretty skeptical view of the game, fairly cynical, not expecting too much, to be honest. And when I got in, that didn't really change my mind. I played all of the classes, Vanguard, Titan, Enforcer, and I played some of the maps. Now, one of the key features of Lawbreakers is, of course, that basically in the lore, the moon has been shattered, so gravity on the planet is all up and down, and there are spots of zero gravity. So that's basically the game's major gimmick, in the sense that you go through a map and then you can hit these zero grav spots where your characters can float around, and shooting a rocket launcher will propel you in the other direction, and it gives the game a nice sense of different physics in different places, and that's basically the game's central gimmick, so to speak. And did this change my mind on the game? Not really. Was it fun? Sure, it was a lot of fun to play, but it didn't really inspire me. I didn't think it was the greatest achievement since sliced bread. And then I played, like I said, all the classes. So we had the Enforcer, Titan, Vanguard. So you've got melee, like the Assassin, which, it was okay. The melee combat wasn't particularly that great. I had a struggle with the depth perception of the game. I couldn't really measure how far my sword would hit. The two probably that I enjoyed the most were probably the Titan and the Vanguard. Not the Vanguard, the Enforcer, which is the one that can fly. That's definitely probably the most fun class there. But the classes themselves, they are unique. They have their own abilities, they have their own ultimate abilities, they have their own weapons, their own styles of play. But, every single one of the classes has attack pros and cons, defense pros and cons. But overall, they didn't lack they certainly lacked the personality of something like Overwatch's characters do. They don't have the same variety. What do you have? You have a bunch of characters all in power armor, essentially, looking slightly different from each other, but all the while feeling very generic and very samey. And again, that didn't really inspire me to change my mind and change my cynical view of the game. So I played my first weekend, and I thought, it was okay. And then something really interesting happened. The next alpha test weekend came up, and then I thought, well, I've already played this. And then I found myself going back to it, and then I did it again, and I went back again the next day. And then I found myself actually playing a hell of a lot of Lawbreakers. And then I found myself actually enjoying the game quite a bit. And I was thinking to myself, why am I really enjoying this? And I couldn't pin it down for a while. I couldn't really tell you exactly why I played so much and really, really started to enjoy the game. And then I realised it wasn't any single one feature, because by themselves, the features, even the gimmicky features like the zero grav, they're okay, they work, they're a bit of fun, they allow for some emergent gameplay, but by themselves, they're nothing special. But the amalgamation of all Lawbreakers mechanics, its classes, and overall, it's most importantly for me, the actual gameplay mode so far that they have shown in the game, them put together, the combination of those creates something that feels really, really nostalgic, like Quake and Unreal Tournament, but also feels very, very new at the same time. And I figured out that I actually really enjoy Lawbreakers, and I kind of hated myself for a spell because I really wanted almost to dislike the game, and I found myself really changing that opinion. What sealed it for me when you actually play the game is the gameplay modes and how they've designed the gameplay modes, because traditionally gameplay modes like Capture the Flag, which is called Overcharge or Battery in Lawbreakers, traditionally, those are very one-sided matches. If you have a Capture the Flag mode, basically one team will run away with that mode, and that's the end of it. Again, Lawbreakers also has a Domination Mode, and Domination tends to be very run away. And I actually found that the gameplay modes and the way that they've designed the gameplay modes in Lawbreakers are actually nail-biting to the very end. So, for example, in the Capture the Flag mode, Overcharge, what you actually get is a battery. Now, you can take that battery to your base, or the enemy takes it to their base, and then that battery begins to charge. Once that battery is charged to 100%, you then have a 20-second countdown timer, and wherever that battery is at the end of that countdown timer, they get the point. What that actually means is that even if the enemy team has that battery charged to 100%, they've had it the entire game so far, your team can still steal that battery at 100%, take it to your base, 20 seconds later you've won the point. Straight off. Complete clincher, end game, touchdown. And that in itself creates some gameplay that keeps you really interested until the end of the match. You never ever feel in Lawbreakers like the match has been lost. Even, there's so many multiplayer games that you get halfway through a multiplayer match and you're like, well, I'm done. I'm not going to try anymore because there's no way that we're going to come back. There's no way this team's going to gel together. It's not going to happen. And the amount of times that my team stole victory at the very end of the match was incredible, so to speak. I've never ever seen it done that many times in a multiplayer online shooter before. The character classes themselves aren't anything special, but when you put them in the game and you put them in these gameplay modes the way they're designed, and the map system the way the maps are designed, and I don't think the maps are particularly special, and I would like to see some more interesting maps, certainly, but I think that the way that they've designed the classes, particularly things like the Enforcer, who has, a wide range of abilities, a wide range of movement, the verticality of the maps, the way that everything feels fast-paced, but at the same time manageable for newer players, it ends up being something that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to keep coming back, and it kept me coming back time and time again. Now, the developers have said that there are going to be more character classes to play, which I certainly hope there will be, because I think while each faction, the Law side or the Breaker side, both have 4 of each, I think that overall, I think there needs to be more variety and more diversity in the game. I would really like to see some really more interesting classes with some really unique abilities. I would like to see, while currently they are certainly situational characters in essence, because you have, classes that will be good more primarily on attack, more characters that will be more defense orientated. Currently, the 4 classes that are in the game can do both. They have abilities that work well in a multitude of situations. And I would like to see more really niche situational classes come in, and so that you have characters that are specifically good at one thing. So if your team is getting absolutely hammered in close quarters on Overcharge mode, and the enemy has nearly 100% battery, and you really want to take that battery, I really would like a character that is ultimately, unstoppable in close quarters, or really good at AoE attacks, or just something that is a little bit different. Because while the character classes in Lawbreakers are a lot of fun by themselves to play, I think they ultimately lack a certain character. They lack a bit of personality. They lack that Overwatch thing. And I understand that the developers as a whole are trying to create a more grittier universe and a more adult universe than that of Overwatch. I ultimately think, though, just because you're making something gritty doesn't mean that you have to leave it devoid of any kind of personality, because that isn't the way it works. You look at The Witcher 3. that world is gritty and dark, but it's full of personality and character, and that is ultimately what these character classes need. And it would be interesting to see. I think they may need a little bit of a makeover here and there, because I think the overall visual aesthetic of the game, it's nice, it looks good, but it's very bland. It doesn't have a vibrant color palette, and I think that it just needs a little bit something. And I think what would help ultimately overall is some really interesting maps, because yes, you have gimmicky things like the zero grav. So why not use them to your advantage, instead of just putting, this is a flat surface and this bit area is going to have zero grav and this area is going to have zero grav, but everywhere else is a flat surface. Why not have something really interesting, like, I don't know, 2 giant aircraft carriers, flying aircraft carriers, and the middle bit in between the 2 aircraft carriers is the zero grav bit. Something like that, something unique, something interesting to the game, rather than have the maps feeling very multiplayer online FPS generic. That being said, I have to say that I am somewhat impressed overall by Lawbreakers. It completely changed my attitude and opinion around. I really like that you're never out of the game completely. I really like that it has that competitive feel to it. It has that fast-pacedness to it. It has the freedom of movement to it, and there's just there's a wide range of things ultimately to like about the game that I would thought going in I was really going to dislike, and I actually really like. I think they've started to create something that could do potentially really, really well. I would like to see a bit more variety, like I've said. I would like to see something a little bit more unique in the game, just to give it that little extra edge. But I think the core design focus of the game thus far is the right way to go. It has ultimately created something that I want to play more and more of. It has played something, it's created something that I never feel that, I've reached my skill limit, or my team is just not good enough for this, or something negative in that regard. There's never a moment where I don't want to go and pick up a random group and play, because it's going to be a negative experience, because even more often than not, when I lose, it's a positive experience because it was a hell of a lot of fun to the very end. So that in itself is an impressive feat for Lawbreakers, and I think that it'll be interesting to see where the developers take the game from this point, because I think overall it's a really good alpha thus far, and I think that if they just put a little bit of innovation in, a little bit of variety, a little something unique, just something to make the game really pop, what you're going to end up having is one of the best FPSs in a long time. So that is my preview of Lawbreakers. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And as always, I will see you next time.